Afternoon, class. This is Mr. Rogers. Um, some of you have asked concerning the IDE and for a tutorial on how to use IntelliJ. For this class, I'm asking that you either download IntelliJ Ultimate Edition or IntelliJ Community Edition. Now, the Ultimate Edition, you do not have to use it, but if you would like to download it and install it, you can get the student license for that by logging into the JetBrains IntelliJ site, creating a student account, and all you have to use is a valid email account from NMC, and basically they'll give you a student license for that. However, you do not have to have it. You can use IntelliJ Community Edition as well. Okay, so what I want to do is briefly walk through how to set up projects and do some sample codes for the class using IntelliJ. All right, so what we're going to do is click Create New Project. We're going to select Java, and I've asked everyone to have installed Java SDK or JDK 13. Right now I have 11 installed, so it's fine. But for you, I'm asking that you go ahead and use the version 13. So we have Java, you have your SDK, you want to click Next. And for our purposes, we're going to create a project from the template, use a command line app. And by doing this, it's going to set up and create for us a project. Now, one of the things I want to talk about real quick, one of the students brought this up in class that when they tried to create their project, they stored their project location. This was on a Windows machine. They stored their project under the program files. And you do not want to do that on a Windows box because the um, the permissions and security features on Windows block Java from compiling anything inside of the program files directory. So you want to save your file using the standard location that IntelliJ creates for you. In my instance, I'm using a Mac, and so it's created, you'll see that there's a tilde here, and that references the home directory. On your Windows box, it should go ahead and say the full home directory your um, for your user. And then it has idea projects. It's a good idea for these projects just to keep them in the idea projects. And then you want to choose the name. Now, we're going to do a sample um, object example today. We're going to create a car class. And because we are talking about objects and methods and so forth, we're going to go ahead and do that for this week. So change your name to car class, and then you have a base package, and you could call this whatever you want to call it. I called mine com.mdr solutions. You could call yours org or .net or whatever you want to call it with your last name. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. These are typically used so that companies that produce projects or jar files available for others, it helps to, it's name recognition. It helps to isolate package names from other common packages. All right, so I have mine as com.mdr solutions, project name is car class, and the project location is set inside the idea projects folder, and it's going to create a project folder called car class. I'll click finish, and it's gone through very quickly and filled it out. Now, when when IntelliJ opens the project for the first time, you may notice over here this project folder. And what you want to do is go ahead and click on that and expand the car class. This is the project you created. The idea folder is things that the integrated development environment that IntelliJ needs to run the program, and this class IML file is similarly needed for that. The only place that we need to really pay attention to is the source folder. Do not delete carclass.iml. Do not delete anything down here or anything in the .ide folder. It will cause your program to not run correctly in IntelliJ. All right, so you'll notice that it has a com.mdr solutions. If you click on that, you'll see the main class. Now, to demonstrate this, if let me clear this out for you. You'll see that I'm in the idea projects, Actually, let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it better. I'm going to go to the Idea Projects folder, and I'm going to go cd into my car class. Clear this out. Now I'm in my car class, and if I do an ls on this, you're going to see the source folder. And if I go into the source, you'll see a com folder. And that may be confusing to some of you because right here you see com.mdr solutions. The package name structure is important in Java. It's something that you're going to get into later on in the course when we talk about packages. But basically, com is a folder and MDR solutions is a folder. So if I cd into the com, you'll see the MDR solutions, cd into that, then you have your main Java. Okay, let's go back to the com MDR solutions folder. When we created the project, it automatically created a main class that we see here, and it created a public static void main method. All right. What I want you to do, if you're following along, is right-click on this package name here on the left and click New, and we're going to create a new Java class. And we're going to call this the car object. Okay, so we got a car, it's of type class. We'll click it, hit Enter, and it created a very simple stub. We have a public class car. And at this point, we're going to model our car after other automobiles. So we're going to create a private member variable, private with a type string, and we're going to call it our model. Then we're going to create a private member variable, and we're going to say it's our make. And then private member variable, and at this point, we need to make a determination of what type of car. Is it a 4-door? Is it a 2-door? So we're going to say int door. Okay, so we have a very simple object that represents real life. We have a car, and it has a model, a make, and a door. And these are private member variables that we've declared at the top. Now, all cars, or let me back up, all classes you create by default have a constructor called car. If I go and define another constructor, I am overriding the default constructor. The best way to demonstrate this is just by coding it, so you'll understand. This car by default automatically has a public car constructor. By default, you don't see it, but it's there. And if I create another constructor, it will automatically override this one. So in order not to override it, I'm going to keep the one that I just put out here and create a secondary. And this constructor, I'm going to include the model, the make, and the door. So I'm going to call the parameter of string model. And for readability, I like to do it like this. Okay. And then we're going to do string make. Whoops. And then int door. I come down here and finish the contents of my constructor. At this point, I have two constructors. I have an extra constructor that I created because if I did not create this constructor, this one here with the parameters would override it and this constructor would not be available. Okay, so I'm going to now set the variables from the parameters in the car constructor to the private member variables. This is how they get set. There's two ways you could do this. You could use the this command, and this object or this syntax refers to the class that it resides in. So anytime I say this, I'm referring to myself, the class that it's in. And IntelliJ knows this, that when I say this dot, it automatically prompts me for the different private member variables that I've already created. So I'll just say model going to use my assignment, and now I'm going to assign it from the model that's here. I'll do it again. This make equals the make that's right here. And this door equals the door that's right there. Now, at this point, I have a very simple class that allows you to encapsulate the data. All classes, by default, they have certain methods that are in them by default. And one of those methods is the toString method. So the best way to describe this, the public class car by default automatically extends from object. Even though I did not have this here a moment ago, it automatically extends from object. Okay, now what are some of the methods that are available in the object class? Well, with IntelliJ, you can hover over it and control click into it and bring up the methods that are available to the object class. And you can see there are some public final native methods. There's hash code methods. There's the equals method, and on and on and on it goes. All of these methods are available by default. Even if you don't say extends from object, they're automatically in there. And what we want to do is we want to override the toString method. And you can see it's already in the object class. So I'm going to take this out because we don't have to have it, but it helps to see that where this method comes from. I'm going to say public string to string. Okay, and you can see that IntelliJ prompts you and says, hey, this overrides the method that's an object because all custom classes, they extend from object. Okay, now typically the way you do this is you say override so that you're announcing to the compiler and to anyone looking at the code that it overrides. All right, so I'm going to override the toString method that exists in the class object. And you can see normally it returns the name of the object and some hash code. But what I want it to return, I want it to return something else. I want it to return data. So because it's a string, I'm going to say I want to see the model. And I want to see the make. I'm putting a comma in there just because when it prints this out, the comma helps to make it more legible. So I want to see the make. And I want to see the door. Okay, some of you may be asking the question, Mr. Rogers, how come you didn't use the this? Well, this is implicit right here. The reason I used the keyword this here is because I wanted it to make distinct and different from the parameters that we see coming in from the constructor car. You do not have to use this, the keyword this on the model, but it makes it more readable. It's more recommended that you change the parameters coming in to be something different for readability. Okay, we have a simple car class. Now, we're going to go back to our main method. The car class exists in this package. It exists in the com.mdr solutions. If it existed somewhere else and I wanted to use the car class in the main class that I have open in front of me, I would have to type import com MDR solutions car. But because this main class is in the same package as car, I don't have to do that. I don't have to include it. Okay, so I've got the main method. Let's take this now and call the car class, create an instance variable of car. And I'm going to call my car a Honda. And it equals a new. Now, this is the cool thing about IntelliJ. IntelliJ will prompt you for the two parameter types. I have a car, and right now, this car constructor aligns to this car constructor. So here I'm saying create a new constructor. Take that constructor and it's going to construct onto the Honda object the type car. Now, what I want to do though is I want to use the other constructor, this one, model, make, and door, because it makes it easier for me to populate those values. So I'm going to type, let's see, my model is an Odyssey. My make is, oh, I'm sorry. My model is a Honda. I may have got this backwards in my head. My model make is an Odyssey. And it is a, how many doors this thing? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doors. Okay, so I have a car. And now I want to actually see what that looks like. So I'm going to say print line car. Well, it doesn't actually work like that, does it? Because I'm missing a whole lot of data here that Java is asking print. What is print line? I don't know what that means. So remember, we're going to use the system out print line, and because my car object, my Honda object that I created from the car already has a toString method, I can pass it in as if it's a string. I know I just blew your mind there. It'd be the same as me saying Honda.toString. Even though Honda, and this is the way all objects work, all objects have a toString method. Okay? So I could pass it in like that, and I could run this method, and what it would print out is the toString object that I gave it. So let's look at it. Model, Honda, make, Odyssey, door 5. I could also do this by saying toString. Click the little run icon again. And it's building, doing its thing. And here we go, Honda, model, make, Odyssey. Okay, so that's one example. But let's now create a second car. And we're going to call this car a Toyota equals new car. And I'm not going to supply it with any data. I'm just going to say Toyota. And I'm going to do my SOUT to generate that system out print line. I'm going to type in Toyota.toString. And the question is, what do you think is going to happen? I haven't given it any data. Will it error out is the question. Because in the car class, the toString method explicitly calls a model. And yet we haven't initialized it anywhere, so what is going to happen? Well, let's see. Let's compile it and see. So we run it again. And We get model is Honda, make is Odyssey, door is 5. And our second one is model is null. Well, that's interesting. Well, why is it null? Well, look, car doesn't do anything with these values. Car says just create the class, this class. And when we create this class, the private member variables of model, make, and door have never been set. So when I call the toString method, model plus null, make plus null, door plus null. I hope that makes sense. So let's go ahead and give it some more data. Let's call it Toyota. Let's call it, how about a Camry? And let's make it a 4-door. Now when I click the run program again, now I have Toyota, model is Toyota, make is Camry, and door is 4. So I have an object. This is the member variable, the object that's been created by calling new car. And so new car, it's using the constructor. And I demonstrated that you can create different types of constructors, right? We have a simple default constructor, and we have a car constructor. Now here's the interesting thing. This constructor right here, by default, always exists on all classes, unless you happen to create a constructor with private member variables. When you do that, it wipes out the default constructor. So if you want that default constructor available, you have to code it in, like I did here. Okay, so this is a quick example using IntelliJ and also using objects and classes. I hope that helps this week. If you have any questions, send me an email, send me a message in the class. I'll catch you later.